Welcome to AERA's video on learning to peer review annual meeting submissions. This video is sponsored by the Annual Meeting Policies and Procedure Committee and the Research Advisory Committee. I am Patricia Alexander. My fellow presenters for this video include James Cebulka and Cynthia Tyson. This video has been designed for individuals who have never before reviewed annual meeting papers and submissions, as well as those who seek to enhance their skills in the area and to learn more about AERA's review process. Again, I am Patricia Alexander. I am a professor in the College of Education at the University of Maryland, where I study learning, reasoning, and reading development. I have been privileged to be active in AERA since the 1980s and have served as a program chair and vice president of Division C, associate editor for AERJ, and a member of the Annual Meeting Policies and Procedures Committee. First, I am going to provide a brief background of the development and importance of AERA's peer review process for the annual meeting. AERA has had a peer review process for decades to evaluate paper and session submissions. To AERA's credit, the association decided in 2007 to further examine the peer review process and other issues related to the quality of the annual meeting. The AERA Annual Meeting Policies and Procedures Committee, AMPP, and the Research Advisory Committee, RAC, were given a joint charge from the AERA Council to examine how best to enhance the quality of the annual meeting as a forum for communication and dissemination of new knowledge. Over a 2-year period, the Joint Committee of AMPP and RAC solicited input from program chairs of divisions and special interest groups, or SIGs, hosted a town meeting at the 2008 annual meeting, gathered online input from AERA members during an open comment period, and considered feedback from 2 divisions that conducted pilot projects. Taking into consideration extensive feedback and multiple rounds of deliberation, as well as input from Council, the Joint Committee submitted a report and recommendation for Council's review in July 2008. In January 2009, AERA Council adopted a number of important changes to enhance the quality of the annual meeting for presenters and attendees. One of the key innovations was the establishment of a peer review process using panels of expert reviewers. These peer review panels were launched beginning with the 2011 annual meeting. Today, you will learn about these panels, the paper and submission selection criteria, and the peer review process. Potential reviewers volunteer to review through an open call for volunteer reviewers beginning in March of each year. Potential reviewers select from which units, division sections, SIGs, and committees they wish to volunteer for, and they are permitted to volunteer for as many as they'd like. Volunteering to review does not guarantee an invitation, as the process is highly selective, and program chairs have a maximum number of reviewer spots they can fill. The number of reviewers each unit can have is directly related to the number of submissions they are expected to receive. Invitations to review are typically sent within the first week of June, and invitees have a week to accept or decline the invitation. If you are invited to review for more than 1 unit, you will receive an invitation to review from each unit. Serving on a peer review panel is a selective process. It is considered an honor to be selected to serve as a peer reviewer and will be publicized to the AERA community as a form of important service to the association and to the field. Reviewers are publicly acknowledged, adding to the transparency of the process and the accountability of each submission unit for ensuring that review panels reflect the criteria for selection. The peer review process is important for the association and the profession because it ensures that high-quality research is presented at the annual meeting. Serving as peer reviewer also aids in your own scholarship by helping you to write better papers and develop your review skills. In my 3 decades as an AERA member, I have consistently been part of the peer review process for the annual meeting. And I can attest that I have learned much from this important service to the association and to its membership. For example, there is no question that my ability to craft clearer and more informative submissions is one of the professional benefits that have come from being engaged in the peer review process. Peer review panels are non-collaborative. However, after decisions on submissions have been made, reviewers can review other reviews for the submissions to which they were assigned. Next, we will provide an overview of AERA's paper and session submission process.
I'm James Sabalka. I come to this process with active involvement in AERA program submissions and reviews for over 4 decades, cutting across several divisions and special interest groups. I've been the senior editor of a major journal and served on several editorial boards. After an academic career in which I served as a faculty member and dean, as well as president of 2 national accrediting bodies, currently I'm working as an independent consultant. I'm going to provide an overview of AERA's paper and session submission process. All submissions and reviews for the AERA annual meeting are done electronically. All submissions must adhere to AERA's Code of Ethics, as well as all criteria outlined in the annual meeting call for submissions. Submissions may address the annual meeting theme, but are not required to do so. AERA's divisions and SIGs may also have additional focus areas in which they encourage submissions. Submissions may be either individual paper submissions or session submissions for symposia. Each paper or session submission may be submitted only to a single division, SIG, or committee. For paper submissions, submitters must select their preferred session format or formats: paper session, poster session, or a roundtable session. Reviewers cannot see the preferred session format chosen by the submitter. Submissions for paper sessions must be in the form of a complete narrative paper, whether the paper is still in progress or is the final version. Proposals to write a paper will not be considered. For all paper and session submissions, the following 6 elements must be addressed. First, the objectives or purposes. Second, the perspectives or theoretical framework. Third, methods, techniques, or modes of inquiry. Fourth, data sources, evidence, objects, or materials. Theoretical or methodological papers should include the equivalent. Fifth, results and/or substantiated conclusions or warrants for arguments and points of view. And sixth, scientific or scholarly significance of the study or work. For session submission, there are also 4 additional elements that must be addressed. First, objectives of the session. Secondly, overview of the presentation. Third, scholarly or scientific significance. And fourth, structure of the session. Submissions must also adhere to the following AERA policies. Authors should only submit complete papers. Proposals to write a paper are not eligible for consideration. Paper upload of 2,000 words or less. Paper upload must be blind of any author identification. If you come across a submission that does not adhere to these policies, please contact the program chair or AERA. More information about session submissions is available online at aera.net. If I may offer some personal advice based on my experience as a submitter and reviewer, try to be explicit in answering the 6 elements required for all paper and session submissions and the 4 additional requirements for session submissions specifically. Submissions tend to be highly competitive, and the advantage tends to go to those submissions that are comprehensive and clearly presented. The cogent logic of a submission is important also. How do the elements fit together? Purpose or objectives? How do they link to a theoretical perspective? How does the research design support these objectives or goals? What is the significance of the findings? And how do these contribute to and advance our knowledge and understanding? The link to a program theme, while optional, can be made clear, and implications for diversity made explicit where appropriate. Spending time on preparing a strong submission tends to increase its competitiveness and likelihood of acceptance on the AERA program. Next, we will turn to the peer review process for annual meeting submissions.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Tyson. I'm a professor at The Ohio State University in the College of Education and Human Ecology, and my area is in multicultural and equity studies and education. My involvement with AERA has been for many years. We don't have to talk about how many decades. However, I've been the member at large on Executive Council. I've served as program chair for divisions and SIGs, and one of the greatest experiences was as the overall program chair for the 2012 annual meeting. Today, I'm going to talk about AERA's peer review process. Panels of expert reviewers enable program chairs to put together well-qualified and inclusive panels and to notify reviewers well in advance what they are making a commitment to in reviewing submissions. Individuals interested in being considered as peer reviewers are encouraged to volunteer for specific units, divisions, SIGs, or committees through the AERA online program portal. Individuals may volunteer to serve as a peer reviewer for more than one unit. If selected to serve on a review panel, each reviewer will typically be asked to review a minimum of 10 submissions and up to 20 for units that receive large numbers of submissions. For units that receive small number of submissions, reviewers may be asked to review fewer submissions. Reviews typically take place during a 3-week period in August. Interested researchers should volunteer only if available during the reviewing time span and able to undertake a set of reviews. Any AERA member or non-member may volunteer for consideration as a peer reviewer. Peer reviewers need to have appropriate, substantive background and expertise. The criteria for invited panel reviewers include such considerations as experience in some form of peer reviewing, service on other professional review panels, knowledge of the field, scholarly productivity, or roles that require research expertise, knowledge of the emerging literature, and broad knowledge of a range of researchers and research specialties in an area. Graduate students may be involved to serve as panel reviewers as well. Each submission will be reviewed by at least 3 reviewers and may be reviewed by a graduate student or students serving as additional reviewers. Program chairs will select a roster of reviewers from volunteers or invited individuals to serve on these expert review panels. Volunteers who are selected by program chairs to serve on review panels will receive an invitation to review early in June. Reviewers must adhere to the AERA Conflicts of Interest policy, which can be found on the website, and recuse themselves from consideration of a submission where necessary. Contact the program chair to be removed from reviewing a submission if you are able to identify the submitter. Reviewers are also required to adhere to confidentiality rules regarding the consideration of submissions. Reviewers use the criteria identified in the call for submissions to evaluate paper and session submissions. Review is double-blind peer-reviewed for paper submissions. For session submissions, the decision whether or not to require blind review is delegated by the submission unit. Each paper is typically reviewed by 3 reviewers. Reviewers are asked to rate each of the 6 required elements on a 5-point scale, with 1 being insignificant and 5 being critically significant. Reviewers will be asked to provide comments to the program chair and separate comments for the author and/or submitters. Reviewer will be asked for final recommendation, accept or reject. The accept-reject recommendation is not visible to the submitter. This is only a recommendation to the program chair.
When providing comments to the program chair and the authors or submitters, it's important to remember that feedback is essential. Scores are valuable, but your comments will illustrate and support your rating decisions. For the benefit of the program chair, note why you gave the paper the score you did. If you gave a paper low marks, but feel it addressed a critical issue, include these comments in the notes to the program chair. For example, does it address the theme in a nuanced and important way? Does it focus on a topic in a unique and important way? Does it address diversity issues that are of particular importance to the topic? In your comments to the authors or submitters, please use respectful language. Your comment should explain why you gave the paper the rating you did, and should provide insight on how they might improve the paper. As a point of information, AERA's submission acceptance rate varies by divisions and SIGs, and is about 50% overall.
To this point, you have heard from James Sobolka and Cynthia Tyson about the peer review process and about the criteria that are used in making judgments about those submissions. What I'd like to do is close this section by talking to you about some general tips, some guidelines that could be useful to you in actually engaging in the peer review process. Let me first say that I would suggest to you that before you ever make a note or provide a score, that you read through every paper given to you carefully and thoughtfully. Once you have read through all papers, then sit down with the scoring criteria and use those to ask yourself critical questions about the quality of the submissions you are reviewing. So, for example, is the purpose or goal of the submission clear? Also, think about the theoretical framework. Can you identify the theoretical framework that the authors are using for this particular submission? Do you believe, given your expertise, that the paper reflects the knowledge base from that particular literature? And are the research questions clearly stated? And does the paper suggest the ways that those questions should be answered? In effect, there should be a clear linkage between the questions asked, the research methods employed, and the data analysis techniques used. For example, do the methods seem appropriate to the research questions that are asked? Are data sources clearly defined, well articulated? And what about the data analysis? Does it match the data sources as well as the questions that the authors have posed? Can you follow the results? Is it clear what the authors found? And do those data support the conclusions and implications that the authors state? Think about some overall questions. For example, would you think of this work as something that contributes significantly to the literature base? And is the submission clearly written overall? These are general questions for you to consider. But if you would like to try your hand at applying these guidelines, a sample AERA annual meeting paper is available on the website where you access this video. So give it a try and see how you do as a peer reviewer for the annual meeting.
Often when I hear people talk about the annual meeting, I hear them say, well, AERA decided this, or AERA decided that. And my response to that, especially when I was the program chair, is that we are AERA. You are AERA. As an overall program chair, I learned that the quality of the annual meeting is made up of many, many components. However, one major aspect is reflective of our ability to engage fully in the peer review process as the experts in our fields. To those who have done this for many years, we say thank you. And to those new to the process, we welcome you. We'd like to thank you for watching this video on learning to peer review annual meeting submissions. If you have any additional questions about the peer review process, please contact AERA at area code 202-238-3200 and ask for the meetings department, or send an email to annualmeeting@aera.net, or contact the program chair for the unit you are reviewing for. Program chair contact information is always included in the call for submissions.